Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is me, your old pal Orpheus, with another edition of the Madness and Mayhem podcast. Once in a while, I like to put out something that you can just slip on some headphones and chill out, kind of listen to something that I have to talk about that's not necessarily best covered while I'm playing something like Blade and Sorcery or something like that. So I like to do these podcasts just once in a while, or at least, if I'm using the VR headset, I try to have an environment that's kind of chill. Same thing, no visuals, just, enjoy the swirliness on the screen there. And I think it'll be just sort of a nice experience for you to hear, some of my thoughts. So as you may have seen in the title of this, I am an autistic adult. I have been diagnosed with autism probably now about 5 years ago, something like that. Did not know that I had autism until that recently. And so growing up with it, not knowing that it was something that I was dealing with was, looking back, very difficult to even endure. But I got through it. It's one of those things where you just kind of develop different habits and different coping mechanisms that sometimes are the same ones that therapeutically you'll be directed to if you have a therapist or something. Now, it turns out some of those coping mechanisms are the exact ones that I use these days when I want to take care of something. Now, it's hard to describe exactly what, when it gets bad, quote unquote, I guess, or I'm having an episode, quote unquote. It's hard to describe because autism is a spectrum kind of disorder, and so you can either have it really bad or you can have it a little lighter, and the functionality can vary along that spectrum as well. So you can have someone that's got pretty bad autism but still be functional, which is kind of what I have. It's not terrible. I would put myself at like a 4 out of 10, you know what I'm saying? Enough to cause everyday disruptions or challenges, but not enough to cause dysfunction in terms of my mental capabilities and stuff like that. I've got the brain damage to do that. Well, before I go on, I just wanted to cover something real quick, kind of a disclaimer. I don't hold a degree in anything in terms of psychology, psychiatry, social work, counseling, not a medical degree, anything like that. I don't have any certifications for talking about anything that is a psychological or medical condition. But I am someone that's lived with it my entire life, various conditions, disorders, challenges, and I think that I can gain or give you a little bit of wisdom on how that works, and maybe, just maybe, give you a little bit of an insight on maybe how your challenges work as well. Okay, so with that out of the way, the autism spectrum it's always kind of there. It's always kind of a low hum of activity going on in your subconscious. And so when I say that it gets bad, quote unquote, there are days when that slider kind of goes up a little bit and it can stay there. And sometimes I liken it to a panic attack. A lot of people have had some sort of panic attack in their life where you kind of feel completely overwhelmed by all the sensory input coming in, bright lights, loud sounds, unexpected people touching you and stuff like that. Sometimes that can send you into sort of a panic attack. And I like people to think about it that way for someone who's autistic. Just occasionally we can have a meltdown or a tantrum, basically, is what some people refer it to. We can have kind of a tantrum or meltdown, and so here are some of the different ways that I have managed to develop coping skills, and some of these are research ones, and some of them I don't even know that they work for me, and my therapist has also kind of given me some hints along the way on how I can deal with things. So the first thing that I like to do is limit sound, okay? And so they sell these special earplugs that can limit the amount of decibels by like 15 or something like that. I don't really necessarily do that. In my house, I've taken a more permanent solution. I've put up extra insulation, sound insulation on the walls. I hide it in different ways, right? So one of the ways that you can do that is by putting up the foam squares that you have for a studio environment like I'm in now. This is my living room, okay? But there's no echoey stuff, at least not that I'm adding. You might hear a little bit of radio echo in there. I like to kind of beef up my voice a little bit back in the radio days, so why not? Anyway, so I've got these foam squares just on the wall around me in random places, and they tend to soak up some sound. We also live somewhere that's extremely, extremely hot, like for more than 6 months out of the year. Like we're talking above 110. And I guess that's the 42 or 43 Celsius, something like that. Whatever. You can figure that out yourself. Metric, yay. So I have insulation over the windows that face the street out here. We're on a main street, and so while some traffic noise is unavoidable, and you might actually hear it in the background once in a while, the loud cars that go by really can freak me out, as can just hearing the random noises, people walking by, just talking to each other, or backfires of cars. Obviously, we have neighbors that love to set off fireworks. Oh boy, which is no fun. So what you got to do is kind of limit sound. If you can get yourself like listening to this podcast, if you have some nice headphones that have noise cancellation, or the Apple system, if you have an iPad or an iPhone, if you have certain kinds of headphones, Bluetooth headphones or earbuds, they have like a background noise kind of thing that you can put on, and it sounds like brown noise or white noise or rain, things like that. So you can kind of block out some of that sound and reduce that input, and that's something that has kind of worked for me. But it's like I'm saying here, it's a step along the way. If it gets worse, I keep adding these things that I'm telling you about. So the next one is to limit light. Limiting light can be, it's kind of passive for my house. Like I said just a minute ago, we have coverings on our windows that are insulated. It's kind of that foil bubble wrap stuff. And then we painted over it so it looks like the rest of the house. For years, people thought that this was one of those like power station houses. And then like you'll have like delivery people and friends coming over to here, and they're like, "Oh, you live in this house? Like we thought this was a power station. We didn't even..." So anyway, not only does it save us money on the power bill every month, but it also blocks out sound, and like I'm saying in this one, it blocks out a lot of the light. And so that is something that really helps. Bright lights can overwhelm people with autism a lot of the time, and so blocking it out in my situation is like that. For you, maybe put some blackout curtains in your room or something like that, so it limits everything and you get to control that environment. I will get to controlling your environment in just a couple of minutes here. Now, extending off of the blocking light thing, there are tinted lenses. You may have seen over the years people that are autistic, they have tinted glasses on, and they may be a blue or a green or maybe a pink or something like that, but they tend to be more towards the blue spectrum. And that's because people that develop or have something called photophobia, which is the fear of light or get overwhelmed easily by light. Again, one of the sort of typical things that you'll see with someone that has autism. The blue tint can actually reduce the amount of information coming in, the sensory information, and it also puts a nice little blue tint on everything, kind of, brightens up the sky and everything. And so what happens is you put on those blue lenses and it limits even more of that sensory information. I'm actually wearing them right now. I have these big, huge, they're like 2.5 inches, no, more than that, like 3 inches across and round, these big, huge hippie glasses that I'm wearing. I look a little silly, but it helps with reducing that it's about reducing the sensory input, and so that's what that can do as well. Now we're going to get to that controlled environment part. So I like to make sure that the environment that I'm in is like, and what do I mean by controlled? I guess like I feel comfortable in it because there are things that are mine around me. So like if I go to a hotel or something, or a friend's house, I bring things like my own pillow or pictures on the wall. It's not as bad as Mr. Bean, like when he goes on vacation and nails things to the walls and like changes the curtains and stuff like that. Nothing like that, but I do enjoy bringing some of my own stuff that I can set around and look at. Here in my home, obviously this is a controlled environment. I control the temperature, temperature, the sound, the light, everything that I need. It's kind of a combination of everything, but it's an overall concept. If you're not going to go for the other steps individually, go for the, controlling the overall environment. Make it comfortable. Make it something that feels safe, okay? Now, the next thing that I like to do when I'm feeling especially autistic, I guess is the way to put it. I don't know. Whenever I get overwhelmed by things, is making the environment more pleasant. So things like incense or candles. We have a smart home, okay? So all of the things around me are controlled by voice. I can call out the name of one of my assistants and then say something that I want it to do, and it'll do it. So, I can tint the light bulbs in my home blue, okay? I can tint the light strips, the LED light strips that I have, whatever color I want. I could have them shifting through a nice spectrum of colors that's calming or whatever. And it may seem simple, like, duh, you're feeling stressed out, turn on some cool lights and stuff. No, but seriously, it really does help, and it really does help for, reasons that are beyond, you just feel chill, man. So it's something that really can help, and it's a small kind of measure that you can take, but it actually does do a lot. Okay, so I wanted to cover something where, there's a lot of people over the years that I have talked to that are like, oh my God, all you got to do when you're feeling really stressed out or having an episode is to meditate. For me, and I think that this is kind of universal for people that are autistic as well, meditation doesn't really help. You're trying to reduce the amount of thought, the amount of input. You're trying to reduce the amount of activity in your brain going on. And for me, at least, when I try to focus and let everything go, there's too much going on already. And so when I try to empty my mind, which is the key idea behind meditation, it's the first thing you do. You clear your mind, right? So you can just kind of be in the moment. Well, if your moment sucks, then being in that moment is not very helpful. So meditation, not as helpful as you might think. And, if someone suggests it to you, you can politely and kindly say, no, I have some other measures that I take that are, a little bit more effective for me. Now, while meditation doesn't work, you may want to consider medication. Now, if you're seeing a therapist and you've been diagnosed with autism, somewhere on the autism spectrum, consider talking to your therapist about maybe getting on some sort of medication. For me, I take something for anxiety as well as mood stabilizers, and those really can give you a little bit of an edge off on the overall panic and anxiety that you might feel, and it will actually chemically reduce the amount of activity going on in your brain, which can very much help when it comes to what we're talking about here. So, you tend to develop your own coping strategies. Make sure you talk to somebody professional about those coping strategies before you make them a hard set part of your life, if possible, right? Because some of those coping strategies that I've seen people over the years that have developed them, they can kind of lean into bad places or unhealthy places. Blasting music really loud is bad. Abusing yourself in terms of self-harm is obviously very bad. I've seen people that, decide that every time that they feel bad or they get overwhelmed, they'll do something like eat a Twinkie. And then you check back in with them 5 years later and they're 450 pounds. Like, how did that work for you? Not so well. I'm still stressed out. Well, okay, there you go. Obviously, self-medication with illicit substances, or in some places that have legal, cannabis or something like that, you can kind of lean into that too much and not understanding, the cause of things, and healthy coping mechanisms can push you further into something like drugs or alcohol as your preferred coping mechanism, which obviously not very healthy at all. So overall, my advice on that is to make sure that you go see a professional. Make sure you go see someone who's going to be able to help you get through those things, give you suggestions on what you can do, and kind of help guide you through the process and set goals and achieve those goals and, go from there. So those have been some of the things that have helped me as an autistic adult when dealing with or trying to deal with an especially bad day or a bad episode, something that might trigger me, and it could be almost anything. If you're autistic, you know that there are some specific things that can trigger your episodes, but there are also random events that happen obviously out in the world, and some of those can have unexpected effects on you here in your head. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it gave you a little bit of insight, whether you are autistic or not. Hopefully you kind of can recognize things in other people. And if someone around you or you find the need to be, I guess, by yourself and limit that sensory input and everything like that, just, know that it's okay. It's okay if you see someone doing that. They have those blue tinted lenses. Don't look at them like they're weird and stare at them. Just understand that there's someone who's dealing with some challenges, and they're taking very capable and intelligent steps to try to make their way through that in life. So, with that all being said, I have been here on the Madness and Mayhem podcast with you. My name's Orpheus, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!